This is the plaintiff, William Attardi. He says he rented a room in the defendant's house in a gated community, and the guy cut off his ability to order food for delivery in a pandemic. The defendant has some gall. He had to move out, and the defendant has the nerve to keep his security? Please. He's suing for $2,338. Every penny. This is the defendant, Winston Parks. He says the plaintiff stopped paying his rent. He moved out without telling him, and this guy is owed nothing because he broke his lease. He's accused of lousy landlording. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $3,000 for unpaid back rent.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says that he rented a room in the defendant's house, but the guy wouldn't let him order food from a delivery service because of the pandemic, so he is owed money because he moved out. The defendant says that the guy stopped paying rent, and if anyone's owed money today, it's not the plaintiff. It's the case of roommates, yes, postmates, no.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Attardi, you rented a room from Mr. Parks, correct?
Yes.
And he has not returned your security deposit. Things did not exactly go well between the two of you. Tell me what it is that happened that caused the breakdown here.
I moved in August 22nd. There were changes and delays to get in there, and Mr. Parks left the residence to go to Fort Myers.
Was the idea that you were renting a room and he had the other room?
He had his bedroom locked.
Okay.
He wanted to know if I wanted to rent the whole house with the other bedroom also for like $1,400. And I said, no, I just want to rent that room. And I had access to the family room, the living room, and the kitchen.
Was there ever a time when you lived with him?
No.
Okay, go on.
So I stayed there, and the following week, he wanted to get a new refrigerator. So he gets a new refrigerator. The following day, he wants to know if I know a contractor to put in flooring. So he wanted me there to sell the place. So he had realtors coming to the house. I had to keep the house clean.
Was that, did you know that? Was that part of your agreement that you would,
He said it was for sale,
or was
and
it, did you have a month to month?
It was a lease up until June. But he said if he sold the house, I was to vacate the house within 45 days, 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
And we agreed on that.
Okay.
So I'm there less than 2 months. I clean the house, show the house to everyone. October 18th, he emails me and says, I have a buyer. Can you be out in 45 days? I called him up. I said, yes, I'll be out December 1st. So he sends me emails also after that to confirm that I was leaving December 1st and emails to say that he was coming there on December 1st. So
Okay.
I had to be out by December 1st.
Okay.
So I paid rent on the 22nd of each month. I paid rent for November 22nd up until December 22nd. But I left December 1st.
I'm sorry, if you had an agreement to leave December 1st, why were you paying rent on November 22nd?
I just paid the whole thing. I didn't know I was leaving for sure because I just paid it just to get out of there.
Okay, do you have any proof that you paid the rent? Do you have any proof that you paid rent on November?
Yes, it has it on the emails that rent is due on the 22nd.
Right, that's not my question.
December.
That would be proof that rent is due on the 22nd of December. My question is, do you have proof that you paid it?
I probably do have proof.
How did you pay your rent? Customarily, how did you pay it?
Check.
Okay.
By check.
So do you have a canceled check for proof of payment of your rent for November 22nd?
I don't have that with me, no. I could probably get that, but I don't have it with me now.
All right. So you can't prove that you paid rent for the month of December. According to you, you had an agreement to leave December 1st, but on November 22nd, you paid rent. And then you are suing for a refund of the rent you paid that you cannot prove that you paid. You're also suing for double your security deposit because he did not return your entire security deposit. Did he return any of your security deposit?
He sent me a check for $154. I deposited in the bank about 4 weeks later, and the check had a stop on it.
Okay.
There was a stop on the check for $154.
All right. And so he told you then, in the letter that he sent you, what did he itemize as the reason why he was keeping the security, or most of it?
He said there was a gas bill for $152. All along, he's sending me gas bills for like $30, $35, $28. All of a sudden, in his letter, he says the gas bill is $152.
Okay. Had you been paying the gas bills, or was
the electric is?
Wait, hold on. Had you been
Yes,
paying the gas bills
yes.
every month?
Yes.
And how would you pay the
Yes, I
gas
have.
bills? You would give him the money for it?
He would send me an estimate and send me an email. I sent you emails.
Yes, I got lots of emails. Now I need you to listen to my question, because I am not asking you for emails. I am asking you if you have proof of having paid the gas bills the prior months and how much you had been paying.
I could probably get my Santander thing online, but that's all blocked because of a scam I had on my thing. So I don't do any of my banking online anymore.
Okay, so then
Because
how
I
would
had
you
money
get it?
out of my.
Okay. All right.
I
so
could go to the bank and probably get.
yeah,
a
no, we're
copy
in
of
trial
that.
now. I mean, these are things that we, all right. Let me ask you, Mr. Parks, why were you keeping the portions of a big chunk of his security deposit?
Because he never paid the rent for December.
Oh, well, here we go. And this is why we like to have proof of rent of December, because typically what happens in court is two people disagree. All right. So according to you, he never paid rent on November 22nd.
Or utilities.
Or utilities.
He wasn't paying it and he wasn't there. He abandoned my
Did he
house.
abandon it, or did you
I
ask him
paid
to
it.
leave by December 1st?
We both had, as you pointed out, an adversary relationship developing. And I says, you could leave. So he never told me he left. He left on his own accord. There was no agreement like rent, the utilities and all that. He just left. And while I'm saying the word abandonment is that he just left the gas on, the water on in the middle of the winter, never returned me my key. And that's how it came about.
How did you end up getting the key?
I had to call the police.
And how did you end up getting the key?
He knew that I was in Florida and I needed the key for New Jersey where he was renting. So I called the police up and they in turn called him up. And then what he did was he sent the key down to Florida, like it's really going to help me out a lot.
Well,
So I had to send the key back.
What instructions had you given him about the key?
The logical place was, I suggested, drop it off at the HOA.
Well, that is right. That is the logical place. But I do see a text where you tell him to mail it to Florida, or an email where you tell him to mail it to Florida. That's why I was surprised by that email. You got a lot of emails from him, Mr. Attardi, where you kind of just ignored him and blew him off. Why were you doing that?
At the end of October, he said that the rent is not for $850 anymore. It's $1,495. So I owe him all this back money, and I owe him money in the future. It's going to be increased. The rent is going to be increased. It was on
stop a second.
10/28.
Mr. Parks, I did see the email where you said if you stay, you have to pay $1,450. What was that about?
I never raised the rent to $1,450.
Well, why did you send that email saying that? You sent an email saying that
because it probably included the utilities.
No, that's not
That it
true.
was
Because the
overdue.
rent, no, that's not true.
There was another email, 10/22, Your Honor,
Yeah, and what does that one
that
say?
says lease that I am supposed to be paying is $1,495 per month.
Right. Okay. Well, you never did pay that,
On
right? So
10/22.
that's not really an issue, right? The issue is your security deposit. And the reason that you kept the security deposit, Mr. Parks, is for a $152 gas bill that spans from November 25th to December 31st. And what else did you keep from the security deposit, Mr. Parks?
Late fee,
Late fee for what?
not paying the rent
No, exactly late fees of how much for what months?
for the month of December,
How much in late fees did you withhold?
$15.
What
I
else
thought
did
he
you
just said
withhold?
before, Your Honor, that I didn't pay for December.
Right, that's why there's a late fee, because you haven't paid it. That makes perfect sense. That's what he's saying.
I did pay that.
I
in
know I'm going to
November.
need proof of that. So you be figuring out how you're going to prove to the judge that the thing you're suing for you paid, because that's kind of basic. You don't need to be a lawyer to know that. Go ahead, Mr. Parks. What were you saying? What else
I
did you
was,
deduct? Did you
adding,
send him a letter explaining what you were deducting?
Yes, and I itemized all the
Okay.
reasons, rationale behind why I reduced the amount of the return of the deposit.
Well, there's so much correspondence that it's very, very hard for me to, because basically the way I see this is you were writing him a lot and he was ignoring you the whole time. And that was making you nuts, Mr. Parks. Would that be fair to say? And you kept asking him to
Yes, it
communicate with
is.
you. He wouldn't communicate with you. Let me ask you, Mr. Attardi, I know that there were many times that he had asked you to leave. But then if you send the rent check, how does he know that you're going to leave? Do you ever bother to say to him, listen, I am leaving, and I'm leaving on this day?
Yes, I did. I told him several times I'm leaving December 1st.
Show me proof that you said you were leaving December 1st.
I even have the email that says that
show me proof where you tell him I will be leaving December 1st. And while he's looking for that, Mr. Parks, can you tell me why you stopped payment on the check that you did pay to him?
I sent it to him in January 11th, the $150-something as the return of his deposit. So he did not cash it deliberately, so that I would send him, and he says, and I have emails from him saying that he never received it. Well, that turned out to be a lie because he tried to cash it a couple months later.
Months? When did he try to cash it? When did you try to cash it, Mr. Attardi?
It was about 6 weeks later, Your Honor. I put it in the console of my car, and then I finally deposited it in the bank.
Are you sure it wasn't April? That would be 3 months later.
April that I tried to. I think it was 4/20. Yes, Your Honor, 4/19
right. So that's
and
3
4/20.
months later, not 6 weeks later, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Here, I have it right here.
Okay.
On 4/14.
So what I'm going to need is an email where you notified him you were leaving December 1st, because he says what you did was abandon the place.
Okay. It's 10/28, Your Honor. It says my reference, Tracy, says that you'll be out December 1st. And he says you can stay till August or December 1st.
No, once again, you're telling me the things that other people say. Like what he says to you. Well, then, you're the guy who's supposed to give notice that you're leaving. So did you give notice that you're leaving? Not did a friend of yours say that you...
Yes, on the phone.
Okay. Oh, now it's on the phone.
Talking to him on the phone.
Because you guys you don't even respond to text or emails. But I'm to believe that you made phone calls and you're chit-chatting with him. Okay. All right. I got it. What else did you withhold for besides gas and electric, Mr. Parks?
Gas, electric, and the internet. $311 for rent.
How did you calculate that?
It's clearly because I was unaware of exactly when he was leaving until finally I had to call the police.
So what number did you use? How did you come up with 311?
Okay, because if he left on the 22nd, on the 2nd of January, then that is before the 22nd when the rent was due for January.
January?
So I prorated it because of...
All right, let's stop. All right, Mr. Attardi, let me ask you a question. If you're unable to prove to me that you gave him notice that you were leaving, all right, because you looked for it in the emails and you couldn't find anywhere where you told him I'll be out December 1st, correct?
Correct, Your Honor, correct.
Right. Then why wouldn't he be entitled to another month's rent since you didn't give him the adequate notice? And you're not even allowed to bail. Like, in other words, he is allowed to bail if he sells a place and gives you 30 to 45 days, according to your written agreement. You don't get to bail according to your written agreement. But let's assume you could. You would still need to give the same notice. And I don't have you giving notice at all. So why wouldn't he be entitled to keep your security deposit when you do leave out of the blue?
Your Honor, I told him over the phone I was leaving.
You told him over the phone, I'm not going to buy. You realize that. Watch this. Did he tell you?
And
did he tell you he was leaving over the phone, Mr. Parks? Your reference is not you giving notice. That's not legally adequate. Mr.
But he also said you can leave December 1st. It's
tell you
okay.
over the first? It doesn't matter. You got to tell him you're doing it. He doesn't know that you're doing it. If he doesn't know that you're doing it, he can't re-rent it. He can't take precautions to make sure the pipes don't freeze, which is why he says you abandoned his place.
Your Honor, I would cringe when I saw an email from him.
Why?
Cringe. Read his emails.
Yeah, I have.
$14.95 a month you're paying. All of a sudden, you're paying $14.95 a month.
Right. Why don't you
The
just
reason
answer?
why he got his house sold up here is because of me. I painted the living room, the family room. Then he wanted the bathroom painted and
So I
and his
paid him
bedroom.
for
Give
it.
me an estimate on that.
Okay,
I know
Mr.
you did.
I
pay me
reimbursed
for
him
it.
for that.
Okay,
I paid him
Mr.
to do
Attardi,
that.
I don't know why you think that supplants your legal requirements. You can't just abandon a lease without telling somebody, yeah,
did
this is
not
what I'm going to
abandon,
do.
Your Honor.
It doesn't matter that if he sends you 20 unanswered emails, which he did, saying you need to get out of there by the 1st, you need to say, okay, I'm leaving by the 1st. You can't just leave them in the air and he has no idea that you're leaving by the 1st. And you can't point to someone else who referred you to him, who now he's upset at because look at how things turned out, and say, somebody else told him I was leaving. That's not really how it works. Okay, so I find that he's entitled to keep the security deposit because of this notice thing, because you actually have a lease and you don't even have a right to get out of the lease. Now, why are you counterclaiming against him $3,000? Lord help us. You actually are suing him for all of the lease until the end of his lease in August, but I find that 1 month is sufficient for you to find another tenant. Did you end up getting back there in December?
I didn't arrive back there until March.
So how did you end up getting the place winterized?
I got the key and I had a neighbor go in there and turn the water off.
Right.
Turn the heat down. The heat was turned up excessively.
How high was the heat turned up to?
74. Should be 68.
Okay.
And then the water.
That's not true,
water
Your
wasn't
Honor. I
bad.
left it at 62, Your Honor.
Okay, go on, Mr. Parks. Go ahead.
So the water was insignificant, but
Okay, all right.
water doesn't matter.
Well, I think
It's
we can all agree that
$144.
this did not go very well. And part of why it did not go very well is because there were, you say you cringe every time he was going to send an email. I would hazard a guess that there would be fewer than 40 emails a day if he got an answer to one of them. You were making him crazy by completely ghosting him. He was in another state worried about his property. You weren't paying utilities and he was getting mad. He thinks in November when you pay the rent that all is good in the hood because he ends up telling you, I hope we don't have problems after this. And then according to you, you left December 1st, but there's no proof that you left December 1st. There's nowhere where you tell him that you're going to leave December 1st. I don't know why you would think that this would go anywhere but south in a situation like this, where there's zero communication from you. On your lawsuit against him, Mr. Attardi, I find that he's entitled to keep your entire security. So I'm not even going to order him to pay you the 100 and something that you didn't cash for 3 months and then are surprised that he finally stopped payment on it. And Mr. Parks, on your counterclaim against him, I find that keeping the security deposit should suffice. That's my verdict. Good luck, folks. Okay.
Mr. Parks, you're the defendant in the case. You did not win your countersuit. What do you think about what the judge just said?
It's obvious since he abandoned the place, there was no rent being paid by anybody. So the place was left empty, and I'm losing money per month because he decided on his own initiative to move out. And I'm entitled for the lease that calls for $850 from him to be paid monthly till the end of the agreed to lease.
It's kind of tough doing what you do while you're in Florida and he's up in the New York area, New York, New Jersey.
Right.
It's really
Definitely.
difficult, isn't it?
It's difficult in the fact that the biggest mistake was made in not checking his background and what kind of a person he is, and landing up with a lowlife that rented my house. There's no question about it.
Well, you've learned a
He's got
valuable
history
lesson.
of doing that.
You've
learned a
learned
valuable lesson.
All righty, that's the way the judge has decided. You're going to have to live with it. Harvey?
This could have gone such a different way if the plaintiff would have put the necessary stuff in writing. When you're dealing with a landlord, especially when you're moving out, put everything in writing.
My mother passed of COVID in August, and I wasn't informed on my mom's passing till I got on Facebook and saw her funeral. I want to know, can I sue them for not letting me know my mom passed? I'm not sure who them is.
I'm going to assume that them is family members who didn't inform the questioner about the funeral. That's kind of how it sounded implied to me. But this type of question, I don't even know where to begin with this, because on the one hand, I feel really I feel very sad for someone who missed their mom's funeral.
On the other hand,
you can't get it back. But on the other hand,
how do you not know that she's passed since last August? When was the last time you talked to her? Obviously, there's some kind of rift.
Get off of Facebook and get on Mom Book or something, and just get more. Unfortunately, that maybe they had strained relationship or something like that, and they didn't see a lot of each other.
And that doesn't entitle you to a cash payout.
No, it's like I overslept and I missed the test. Can I sue the people who made my alarm clock? It didn't go off. It's incumbent on you to be informed about that, to be on top of that. And when I heard the question, I thought to myself, this would never happen in a Cuban-American family, because if somebody goes to the hospital in that family for a hangnail, there's a vigil, there's a candlelight vigil in the waiting room outside of the entire family, constantly coming and going.
Security comes and says you have too many people in your room.
Right.
And of course, we have been very lucky, and no one in my family's been hospitalized for COVID. But the whole idea that because you couldn't even come in with your family member if your family member was dropped off for COVID because of the pandemic. That would have just been really hard.
Yeah, tough situation.
Okay, that's going to do it for this session of the People's Court. By the way, you want more People's Court? Check out our podcast. Check out our YouTube channel. We'll see you next time.